If you're 40 with no savings, then this is your wake-up call. No, you're not lazy. The system is just working against you. I know it's blaming the system, but on this occasion, I think we could be right with the system. It's failing you, right? Depending on where you live, it's failing you. If you live in the United States, it seems to be failing people there, failing people in the UK and Europe, and it's certainly failing people in Australia. How do I know that? Because I live here and I can see it day by day how it is actually affecting every single person, not just the middle class or the lower end, but it's also affecting people who up until recently thought they were doing pretty well. In fact, a friend of mine just said that his friend who's working for a large consulting company is now at a position where he's actually thinking about taking a second job. And so it's not just people, regular people, it's people who have got great careers who are now realizing that the cost of living is now starting to bite into their lifestyle. And just recently I saw an article that said that millions of people are working two jobs, not just to get ahead, but to actually just to survive. And why that's happening is because particularly in Australia where I live, there are more people being immigrated here than we can possibly cater for in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of jobs, in terms of real estate and land, and it's causing the price of everything to go up. A lot of inflation happening. And because we're not so effective here with our energy strategies in terms of our nuclear power or our coal power, or we're moving too green too quickly, where a lot of our power is going up, and that pushes the price of everything up, and it causes a lot of inflation. And so that's why you're finding it's $15 for a beer at the local pub. And just recently, I read that in Australia, we've actually brought in the last few years, the same number of people as the entire city of Adelaide. And so if it feels like there's more competition for things, is because there is. And so here's some brutal realities that are happening, certainly in Australia, but you could possibly say in the UK and in parts of Europe as well, that most people at about 40 have less than $10,000 in savings. In fact, I read a really brutal article just the other day that 25% of people living in the United States are using buy now, pay later apps to buy their groceries. What that means is people can't afford food. And if we look at shelter, people can't afford rent or a mortgage. And so if you look at the three most important human needs there are, the first one is actually shelter. People think it's actually water. It's not. People think it's water, then food, then shelter. It's actually not. It's shelter, then water, then food. Because if you don't have shelter and you're exposed, you can die of hypothermia and cold very quickly. So shelter is more important than water. And if people can't afford shelter, and if they're using buy now, pay later apps like Klarna and Afterpay to buy groceries, we are in a lot of trouble. So if you're not working two jobs, you will be very soon, no doubt, and you're going to start to have to really tighten things up, because the way the world's headed, it's going to get very tough, okay? So most people have less than 10K in savings, and some can't even afford their groceries. And the cost of living, while it's soaring, wages are also flat, because what's happening with wages, even if wages are at 3%, inflation is more like 3 to 5. And so wages in real terms aren't even increasing. But worse than that, shelter in terms of property seems to be growing at 3 to 5 to 7% a year, particularly in Australia, which means people are being priced out of the housing market, not just in mortgage repayments, but also in rentals, because we're not supplying the housing market here fast enough and we're immigrating too many people. It's very obvious what's happening. And of course, adding on top of that, the energy crisis we're all in, no wonder people are struggling, because they are.